Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Sleep, Repeat. My name is Dylan,
And my name is Hayden.
and we're back. We're back, and we are not in the same room because we realised that it's less things for us to do to just stay in our own house and crawl
Fewer.
upstairs and get on the computer. Pardon?
Fewer things.
Oh, you were learning. Well done. I planted that there on purpose, like a real teacher.
I've been
to
waiting
see
years to get him.
If you... No, it was all planned, Hayden. I don't know what you're talking about.
That old teacher trick, eh?
Well,
That's
funnily
made me
enough-
way
Go
too
on.
excited, by the way. Way too excited to get you there. Go on, carry on. Please carry on. You've made my day. Go on.
No. Well, funnily enough, in our recording, which you'll hear later on with our esteemed guest, I also did make the same mistake. Wonder if you guys can listen up and hear for it.
Did you?
But you didn't say anything. I'm not going to say anything else. But I
Oh,
said
no.
less when I definitely should have said fewer. I don't know how that makes you feel, Hayden.
I'm annoyed that I didn't jump on that opportunity, but, there it is. I still got one.
Well, I mean, even if you did jump on it, I probably wouldn't have had it for 5 seconds because we've got a slight issue, guys, that we're going to tell you about right now with today's episode.
Yeah.
My internet connection was decided to be the worst it's ever been whilst we're doing our online version with Sophie, obviously, over the internet. So I was a good 5 seconds behind, and I know the joke is, Hayden, that I do like to interrupt you anyway. Can't deny that. I mean, it is enjoyable for me. It was exacerbated massively. I would say something, and 5 seconds later, it would come through whilst Hayden was in the middle of a sentence. So we're going to try and clean it up as much as possible. But anyway, we'll talk about Sophie in a second. We're going to do our usual introductions. Welcome everyone who's come to see Sophie. Why not hear about two boring men for a while instead? Hayden, how's your week been?
Oh, wow, what an introduction. Hey, everyone. Nice to speak to you all. Please do listen to my stories. I've actually got quite a funny story from this week that I think will make you laugh.
Okay.
I've had a lovely week, by the way. I've had a lovely week. The sun is coming out. That spring feeling is there. I didn't wear my thick coat for the first time in many months.
That's a
It's
big
just
moment,
nice,
isn't
isn't
it?
it?
That's a
It's
big
nice.
moment.
Just a quick question to you. Do you find yourself affected by like those seasonal, what's it called? SAD, isn't it? I always forget. Is it seasonal affective disorder or something like that?
Yeah, I just noticed seasonal depression.
Yeah, that's what I think of it as. But I find myself very affected by that. Like my happiness, it just plummets during those winter months. Are you similar, or do you not? Really
Yeah,
care?
definitely. And it seems to be getting worse the older I get, and I don't know why that. Maybe because I get just trudging along at work, and then you finish work. There is nothing worse than leaving for work and it's dark, and getting home from work and it's
Yeah.
dark. Like that is the ultimate. It feels like you're in a constant night for like months. But what is amazing is, Hayden, within 2 weeks now, the clocks are going back, and I cannot tell you how happy a light evening makes me. When it's still light at like 7 p.m, oh my gosh, it makes so much difference, because even at the minute, you finish work, it's light, you get home, you cook your dinner, you sort stuff out. When you actually like switch off and relax, it is then nighttime. It's dark.
Yeah.
There's something about them summer evenings, right?
Marking books at school, seeing it get dark before you leave, it's just like, oh, so annoying. Like I've not got any of this day, but yeah, I agree. Anyway, so this week, just one quick thing about your blooming class, because they always pranking me, aren't they now? Because of you. There's some kids go up to me this week. I was so excited to go up to me and say, "Oh, hey, Mr. Stevens!" I was like, "Jesus Christ, what? Are you okay?" "Oh, you were on the sad face today. Ha ha ha! You were on the sad face. Ha ha!" Because apparently you'd written my name underneath a sad face on a board. They couldn't have been more buzzing to tell me that I'm naughty. Oh
Well,
man, so
yeah, the thing is with that, I think a lot of people agree now. I genuinely don't really like the idea of a sad face on the board. I don't know about you. I don't know what you think. I don't like that. I think it's quite old school. I don't like putting a name on. I just think it's the wrong way to go about it personally. So I just don't like that. But what I do like doing is massively overpraising people who are doing the right thing. So I love the use of my board with a smiley face, and I'm constantly writing people's name up and bigging them up and giving them team points if they ever do anything that's like, above and beyond, like going that top level. So I just thought, do you know what will work here though? If I invert it and put Mr. Stevens on the sad face, they'll be so buzzing, and no one will want to join him. No one will want to join him on the sad face. They were so happy.
Backfired. They're all naughty. They loved being there with me. But I got my own back a little bit because I came into your class the other day, which I haven't spoken to you about since, by the way, and it really made me laugh because I could see you were in the middle of trying to actually be serious. So it was just after lunch. Dylan's got PE, and I said to him that I'd help him get out some of the wall equipment because he hasn't done it in a while. I was like, that's fine. I'm on PPA. But I thought, now I know, I'll go round to your classroom mid-registration, the most annoying possible time to have someone disturb your class, when you want them to be silent. And I just walked in, I didn't say anything, and just found an empty desk, like where a seat was, and just sat down and just pretended to be a kid. Didn't look at any of them around me. I just pretended to join in. I'm a kid now. So obviously the other kids were looking at me, sort of giggling, laughing. Dylan's like, no, should I get, guys, hang on, because midway through explaining what they're going to do in PE and how sensible they have to be. Okay, and then I just put my hand straight up for a question. And I could see your face like, oh my God, go away. I'm just trying to get this bit done.
I'm always up for that. I think it's really funny. But you did just happen to come into a point where I was like, no, please, Hayden, they really do need to know that if we're going to get all this equipment out in PE, they can't be silly. So I was really in my serious mode, which I probably think is like less than 5% of the time when it wouldn't be acceptable. Like I wouldn't be able to write it out. But you honestly gave it the worst possible point. I was like, guys, seriously, when we get this equipment out, okay, we're gonna have to be really, really sensible. You barge through the door, literally. You waltz in like you're on a catwalk. Like, hey guys, and you come in, sit down, whack your hand up, and I was like, okay,
I love it. Lost them all. Anyway, how was that lesson? Because I didn't actually reflect with you afterwards. Like, because we got to basically, I helped Dylan get all of the classic wall equipment out. You know, the ones that were put into schools in like the 90s, and obviously schools haven't changed since then because there's been no funding since. But that stuff, we got all the apparatus out, the big apparatus. Yeah, how did they find it? Because it might be their first time.
They absolutely loved it. They've done it in year 3, and to be honest with you, we all know how often we should be using that stuff all the time in gymnastics, and we've actually got training coming up centered around that and gymnastics in general, and moving towards as close to 100% movement and children doing stuff in the PE lesson as possible. Because I don't know about you at the minute, obviously I'm not a PE specialist. We talked about this a million times. I teach PE because it's part of the curriculum, but I know that I'm not a specialist in the same way where I can interpret a maths curriculum or an English curriculum. So when it comes to doing gymnastics, I spend a lot of my time, I feel like, talking to them and giving them instructions on what to do. And the reason why this lesson was absolutely fantastic. Sorry, I've got a bit of fluff in my mouth. Stop. Everyone listening. I don't know if we come from a microphone or not.
This is an attractive look. Look at that.
Anyway.
Carry on.
Yeah, I can't talk properly. I've got fluff.
Not cutting that out. Not cutting that out. Just so you know.
No, definitely not. No, we're lazy now. We don't cut anything. Anyway, this lesson I thought was fantastic because we just simply set up some kind of carousel and we applied what we'd been learning, which were balances, different points and patches touching the floor, just to the equipment. And they absolutely loved it. And I think what you mentioned was a really good thing to start off with. The first time this year we'd gotten the equipment during gym inside. And I kind of just laid down the rules on how to be safe and let them explore it and just let them have a go and just do almost whatever they wanted within the confines of being safe, obviously. That's cool. And that's the kind of thing I still remember from primary school, doing that. So I love the idea of giving them that memory.
And it's nice that they've got you, a sort of, a young, really physically fit and healthy teacher as well, who can also do sports, right? And not injure themselves and generally just model, how to be super flexible and fit, right? That's
yeah, right. So 2 things. Number one, do more sport than you. Number 2,
no, not a competition. It's just a criticism of you.
I play football. I think I've spoken about it on the podcast before. I play 5-a-side, and I've just started going back again now. Rory's a bit more into a routine at the evening. So I've been going back to football. First time I went back to football, completely tore my quad. Honestly, just heard it pop. Then it felt okay. Like I couldn't do much in it that game, but like over the week, it felt fine. Like it had healed. It was just maybe I hadn't torn it. Maybe I just like stretched it a bit, but it feels okay now. Yeah, I went back for the second time, 10 times worse, within 5 minutes. So I was walking around the pitch, like ruined the game for everyone. Like 5 minutes in, one person can't run. So it's like, cool, it's 4v5 basically. So completely ruined the game. Had another like 2 or 3 weeks off. And I was like, do you know what? It feels great. I'm just going to go and play. Within 5 minutes of my third game, pop, couldn't do anything, can't kick with my right leg. And only this morning, which for context for everyone, we're recording like 3 days after football, I kind of just looked down at my leg and I was like, wow, that's muscular. And I looked at the other one and it was nowhere near as big. And I was like, that's not muscular. That's a tear in my quad.
It's swollen.
No football for me. Yeah, no football for me for a while.
Well, as much as I enjoy rinsing you, I'm going to big you up a little bit as well because you have stuck. Also, speaking of fitness, you've stuck to your diet that you set yourself January 1st.
So just standing up. You carry on talking, mate.
He stuck to his diet. Dylan has lost 2 stone as of this week. 2 stone. We're very proud of you. He's
Careful
currently flexing on camera. If you're not watching,
that really
you're
hurts.
missing out. Mind your quads. But yeah, 2 stone. Well done. I am, as much as I like rinsing you.
Jealous?
I'm proud. I'm impressed. Not jealous. Okay. I am a little bit, but it's fine. But you've done very well. You're sticking to it, and I feel like should be. I feel like without me as your guiding light, though, you wouldn't have achieved this. Basically, you owe all of your probably in all areas of life. You owe your success to me. I think.
I reckon so.
So let's make this about me. Well done for doing your diet with my guidance and keeping you on
when
the path.
When you say guidance, do you mean constantly telling me how I'm going to fail in the next week?
Oh, time's up with this bit. I'll move on. Anyway,
right.
Can I tell you one more story about my week?
I heard you had. Again, I don't know what this story is, but I've heard it's an amazing story. So I really want to hear this.
I've been buzzing to tell you this, right?
Okay.
So this week, I've got for anyone for the context of this, I teach year 6, okay, and I was doing an English lesson, and this part of our system of our English lesson is our structure. Sorry, once they're writing their date and walk, which is the most boring, pointless waste of time ever, we usually put something on the board just to keep some of the quicker finishers busy, just for like an extra minute. And it was just 7 pictures, and the pictures related to words that were spelled with silent letters, because we've been doing that in our spellings recently. So just clues, and it was okay. Try have a go at working them out. Spell the 7 words in your book.
Do you mean like there's a picture of the word? Is that what you're saying? So
yeah,
it's not
so it was like
down.
there was a picture of like an autumnal tree. So that's a guess that was autumn, and that's a guess the word. So one of the pictures was of a baby a cartoon baby cow.
Right. Okay.
And they were working their way around. They got to that one, and I could see a few people like, oh, I don't know what that one is. And one of the kids said, what is that? I was like, it's baby cow. They were like, yeah, but what is a baby cow called? I can't remember. I said, what's a baby cow? And they're all like scratching their heads. Like, what's a baby cow? I was thinking, come on, guys. Baby cow. Everyone knows that. One of the kids was like, oh, I think I know. It's a kid. I was like, oh, not you're in the, well done for getting a baby animal, but that's not a baby cow. And then as I was sort of saying this, one of the other boys in the class, and he was being super genuine with this. Okay, he wasn't trying to be funny. He put his hand up, and I know what it is. It's a MILF. Mrs. Stevens, it's a MILF. It's a MILF. Mrs. Stevens, a baby cow's called a MILF. It's a MILF, isn't it? It's a MILF. It's a MILF, I think. And he was just shouting at the top of his lungs. He was so happy because he thought he'd worked it out and no one else could. And he thought it was called a MILF. The baby cow is not a MILF. And obviously, I sort of smirked, and then but it quickly dawned on me that I can't say no. That's a MILF isn't that. It's this, because obviously MILF is a rude acronym. Go and look it up if you don't know what a MILF is for some reason. And he was I thought to myself, is he taking the mick? Is he trying to be funny? And he was not. I can wholeheartily say, he absolutely just thought that's what a baby cow was called. I think he was confusing.
That's not a MILF, kids. This is a MILF.
So I think he was confusing milk and calf, and he got to MILF somehow. Oh man! But then obviously, what do you do in that situation? Because there's me thinking that's hilarious. That's objectively really funny that you've done that. But I can't. So I sort of laughed a bit. And I was like, no, come on, mate, come on, no. Let's stop. It's not a MILF. It's a calf. Guys, it's a calf. And then some of the other kids were like, what? So what's a MILF then? What? I was like, no, we're not going to talk about it. Because actually, it's a calf. A calf is the key word. Let's move on. And then, you just think, oh my God, this could have descended into something terrible. But cracked me
God.
up. So from now on,
that is
Dylan.
So funny. Yeah.
We've got a hoot of owls from a previous episode, a collective noun for owls. And now we've got a baby cow, which we all know is called a MILF.
A herd of MILFs.
Oh no, herd of MILFs. Oh, let's not go there. But unreal. Yeah, it just cracked me up. It was an absolute highlight of my week. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, that's a lovely catch up. We should probably now we've completely alienated all the listeners who came for Sophie. We should probably get into our chat with her. What we are going to do, just so everyone knows, obviously we're doing this after the fact, is we're going to split this into 2 episodes because we had such a long chat with Sophie. Sophie is absolutely fantastic. Anyone who hasn't listened to our first episode with Sophie, It is the top, if not second, our most listened to episode so far. We talked all about shared parental leave because at the time Sophie was benefiting from that, being on maternity leave and getting paid the full amount. So please do go and listen to that first if you haven't. And we thought, well, okay, fantastic guest. Let's get her back. She's now got her boy who's 18 months old. She's returned to work. So this episode, we're going to talk all about parenting. So everything to do with the return to work, how tricky it can be, raising a child as a teacher, how that can affect things. And then Hayden, next week, we're going to dive into something I think you're very interested in currently, which is what?
So next week, the second part of, I guess, well, two-parter. Ooh, second part of this chat with Sophie is all about the SATs. Sophie, is an expert when it comes to the Key Stage 2 SAT. She knows a hell of a lot about it and has written lots of analyses herself and all sorts of things. So we dive into a conversation about the SATs and opinions on the SATs and all SATs questions you can think of. So you've got to stick around for next week's episode as well to get the full experience of our chat with the amazing Sophie Bartlett.
Hello, Sophie. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you both?
I'm so good, and I think I speak for Hayden for this whole podcast when I say I'll just chat.
Oh,
he can
please
sit
do.
And watch. Yeah, it's just normal at this point, isn't it?
I'm just the admin guy. I'm just here, just making sure it's all right. Although not very good at that normally, because Sophie, you won't know this, but we did an episode with Jane Considine and Heather Wright in the past, and it is like, everyone has like a nightmare memory of just something, and when we recorded that episode, I didn't press record for the first 45 minutes of our conversation.
Oh my god!
And I realised 45 minutes in.
Have you heard the end of that yet, or is that just still?
No,
not really. Anyway.
And even then, when he said, when we recorded the episode, I was going to jump in and say, what do you mean? Because you didn't.
We did it.
Anyway,
but we're recording this time.
Yeah, and you
leave
are
the
our
important
guest,
stuff
Sophie.
to Dylan then.
Exactly.
I am here.
So I'm gonna lead the conversation into actually our guest speaking, Hayden. So you can be quiet for a second. Sophie, last time we chatted, we spoke all about staying positive was like the vibe and just teaching in general because we were going through the whole strike palaver back then. And a big thing was parenthood, and we were en route to becoming parents. We are now parents, both Hayden and I. How have you found?
You're in the club.
Yeah, I know. How have you found it? What's it been like? Because I know you've returned to work, and that's a big step, isn't it?
Crazy. Crazy is one. I think, I'm going to be honest, I have many a time considered whether this is the right career, but I am only 2 terms in. So I realise there's a lot of up and downs. But been persuaded back many times that it's definitely the right career. It's just, in your dips and you think, oh my goodness, the amount of work that it can be and the amount of guilt, because you, as a parent, you have this whole other layer of guilt, of parent guilt, on top of teacher guilt, because always guilt surrounding whenever there are children. So yeah, it was a rocky start. It was really hard to get into the swing of things, had to completely relearn a way of life, really, especially being a job share, which is so hard. Lots of pros, but also found it really difficult to just not be in complete control, which is out of my nature. But luckily my job share is absolutely brilliant and a good friend anyway, so that really, really helps. But yeah, difficult. I'm going to be honest, really difficult. But I'm slowly getting back into the swing of things, and school is like my safe space. So if I'm having a hard time at home or not sleeping, which is most of the time, just going to school, I actually just feel like relaxed, like I know what I'm doing here. This is great. I can have fun and then go back home to the chaos. So
you said you sort of doubted whether this was the career for this. What were those positives that you found? Just asking for a mate. What was it exactly, precisely about the job that you found that was okay when coming back as a parent? Just unrelated to me, but.
Honestly, the kids, it's always the kids. Just being in the classroom and the kids, it's the stress, isn't it, of everything else that just gets to you. But I always come back to when the classroom door is shut, no one's necessarily watching, there's no learning walks, you've got no stressful staff meetings or parent meetings, it's you and the kids and you're chatting rubbish about, well, hopefully not rubbish, but you're delivering your lesson that you've carefully planned, not winged because you've had no sleep. Yeah, a bit rubbish. There's the joy in that, isn't there? That's what I really like. And of course, the bonus of having the school holidays, especially when our little ones start actually going to school, that is going to be a huge. Although I will tell you now that the real jealousy thing I have at the moment is a lot of my mum friends are going on term time holidays to really nice places because our kids aren't at school yet. And I'm thinking, this is why this isn't the job for me. But obviously it will be. It'll be my turn soon when they have to get childcare in the holidays and we don't. So there we go.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, we've got all that to come. Obviously, we're really early in that journey, and I suppose for us, it's been a different part of the journey. Like we obviously went back to work kind of immediately. I forget that we even had time off, which is obviously a very different experience, I suppose, to what you've
I don't know how you, because how long did you both have? Was it just 2 weeks, or did you work out a bit more time?
It worked out more, didn't it, Hayden? I know with my one, I technically had 2 weeks off before half term. And where we are job shares, it did actually work out. Like I almost had a calendar month off, and Hayden's I think pretty much over Christmas
almost 3
as well.
weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was like 3.5 weeks that we managed to get off, because I also had a day off at one random one beforehand as well. But it just so happened that we had a month off. But it felt like, and Sophie, I don't know how you felt after you had your boy for the first time. That first like 4 to 8 weeks, right? Both felt like the most draining, long, horrendous, sleep-deprived, horrible 2 months of my life, while simultaneously being the absolute best whiz that went past really quick out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
looking back, it's so crazy.
It's mental. Someone said to me the other day that parenthood is full of, what's the word, conflicting emotions of, I really want some space and I want to be on my own, and also I never want to leave my child. I want my child to only be with me. That kind of thing. Or this time is going so slow. Why are these minutes not passing? And oh my God, I've just had 3 weeks and he's grown so much. And it's just constantly a battle like that. And I just can't believe, you said you both had about 3 weeks, but that's no time at all to then leave your baby. I know, obviously,
No.
I'm assuming your partners have had longer, but still for the dad, it's just mental. I think my partner went back after 4 weeks and it just feels like nothing.
Well, so our partners are both still off at the moment.
Yeah. How old are your two?
So mine's 4 months yesterday, and Dylan?
5 months and a week. I think there's 5 or 6 weeks between mine and yours, Hayden. So
yeah.
But I tell you what, again, I'm at the point now where it is such a different phase to the newborn phase. Like they are completely different. Because when Roy was a newborn, River a newborn, they felt like a little potato, and it was just like they kind of just went
and looked like one.
Yeah, they looked like one. They felt like one. They like looked like looked at you like a potato would look at you, just through you, not even noticing you're there. And now I think he's way more close to what he will look like as a toddler than he was a newborn already. And seeing that change, like I don't know, every 2 weeks it feels like I've got a new baby. It's crazy. And obviously yours is your boy's at 1.5 now. Like do you still feel like that incremental jump of like, oh, it's changing, or you feel like you're in that like toddler phase yet?
No, still changing so much, less so in looks and skills as much, because he's walking and he's done all kind of the main physical things, but the speed, I can't wait for you to get to this stage, because it's fascinating to watch the speed they pick up language. Like when he said his first word, that was great, and then suddenly within a few weeks he was saying so many words. You're like, where's this all come from? And they start copying everything you're saying, which is when I was like, okay, I've got to stop swearing now, because I swear way too much around him. He needs to stop, because they copy everything. But you just can't believe the things they clearly pick up, and suddenly they'll do something or say something. You think, where has that come from? And so he's kind of, settled into his looks a little bit. So that doesn't really change as much. But the speed at which they pick up things is fascinating. It's so interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is nuts. Well, I had one question for you. So I know a lot of people, they talk about, obviously, when you go back to work, we've kind of talked about the difference between dad and mum. It's very different when a mum goes back to work, though. I think it's like, it's almost like that final leap, because now I suppose your husband's working away, you mentioned, and is obviously back at his job. You're back at the job now. And although it's hard for Hayden and I to go back so quickly, at least we did have that kind of at home, mum's at home, we can come back, take the load and share it. How difficult was it for you going back to work? We know teaching itself is a tricky job, but how did you find that kind of, for me, a huge transition then to both parents working? Do you rely on childcare? Are you lucky enough to have family who can join in? And just in general, how was that for you and Rory, like that separation?
It was, it takes a village, as they say, and luckily I do have a village. My parents are amazing and they help out a lot. So Rory goes to nursery and my parents have him for one day. So that's been incredible. But what has been particularly hard with my situation is my husband, because he's a pilot, he's got no set schedule and he's on call a lot of the time and is away last minute. And we fell into the cycle that I did antenatal classes before, and the teacher said, you are going to have this argument, so I'm preparing you for it now, of who is the most tired, and just be prepared, you are going to argue about it, and no one wins, even though I always think I am the most tired. There's no way. So of course we fell into that cycle of who is the most tired, and you get into that conversation, it doesn't ever end well. But yeah, I think it was really hard to begin with, kind of got into a rhythm now. What was particularly difficult is I'm actually still breastfeeding. I was obviously still breastfeeding when I went back to work. So that was interesting because there are rules around that. Like, you should have a place to pump in a workplace. And some schools aren't, especially my school's so tiny and no one's really done that before. It's like all new territory of, oh, I'm supposed to have a place to pump that isn't the toilet. And it's really hard to broach those things. But yeah, we've settled into it now, and I'm in a routine with that, and my boy's in a routine with childcare, so all fine. But obviously, it took us a while to get there.
You just have to be so organised, don't you? Like, being a teacher, you have to be organised anyway. And I find I'm not that organised, but whatever the amount of organisation that I have is already taking up like all of my brain with teaching. I find so I just can't actually imagine being you or being a woman that's breastfeeding as well and having to pump and trying to organise all of that part of their life on top of, oh, by the way, you've got these 32 kids to organise in your job and whatever other responsibilities you have. So it must, it's a stressful experience, I imagine. You can see why people do leave the career and try to go for other things, because that's a lot to take on. Yeah. So now that you're finding a bit of a balance, I suppose, like, do you have any? I'm imagining we've got some listeners out there that are maybe in a similar boat or thinking about becoming, getting into a similar boat. Do you have any like advice for people going back to work? Like, how do you manage that stress? Because it's not going to not be stressful. How have you found a bit of a balanced approach, or what do you do?
I think it's been what was particularly helpful for me is that every other teacher at my school, bearing in mind again it's very small, so there's not loads of teachers, are all mums, and they've all been through the scenario of going off work, going back part-time, having job shares. So there was 4 or 5 women at my school that I could talk to about that situation. But if you don't have that, especially if your teaching staff is a little bit younger and no one's maybe gone through that yet, obviously I'm going to advocate speaking on Twitter about it and getting advice from other people that have gone through it, because I had no idea how to do a job share. Like, there was what I wanted to do, and then what was right for the children and what was right for my job share as well. So just finding out different ways of splitting the workload and making sure that I wasn't taking on too much, that actually I'm teaching 3 days, I shouldn't be doing more than XYZ. Same for my job share. So yeah, that'd be the main thing, is just speaking to people who've done it before, because it's a whole new world of working. And I don't know if you two have found this, but I found previously I had no cut-off point. I would just work until the work was done, which is so unhealthy. Whereas now you have no choice. You have to cut off at whatever time. And if it's not done, tough, which is good. It's a healthy way of working, but I was not used to that. So I had to work out really what are the priorities when I'm planning or marking or doing all this admin, and kind of sack the rest of it off.
God, it really is like talking to Dylan again. It's literally, you two have a very, very similar mindset. Yeah,
right.
It's really cool.
Well, I wanted to.
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, I did want to jump in on it though, because Hayden and I have this conversation all of the time. So even before we had our children, I was very much methodically moving towards that mindset that you're describing now, because I was just thinking, okay, as an ECT, we would plow honestly 6-7 hours of a Saturday planning and making what we thought were the best maths resources ever. Looking back, they were as good as what I can make now in half an hour, genuinely. But I was moving towards that anyway. And then when we had our baby, I made a decision that I was not going to do any work outside of school time. And that wasn't like me being flippant or me not taking my job seriously. That was me saying that if I can't get it done between 7:30 and 4:45, 5 o'clock on my 3 days, or we can talk about job share in a bit more detail in a minute, because I'm something I'm really interested in chatting to you about. But if I can't do that in my time, then it is an unreasonable ask what's being asked of me. And having like an open dialogue with SLT about like the expectations and explaining why maybe something hasn't been done is a really big leap for a lot of people. And I know a lot of teachers and colleagues who would sooner put themselves through a really stressful like situation without speaking about it, getting work done when they simply don't have time to, and like running themselves down, than having like almost not the, I don't want to say the bravery, but almost the oomph just to say, you know what, this is unacceptable. So do you think, did it take you having Rory for you to get to there, or were you kind of edging towards that anyway?
No, it took Rory. I think I knew rationally that I should have a cut-off point, and my husband was always telling me, you're doing too much. But in my mind, it would always be, but if I do 15 minutes, I can plan more for that child. And if I do that, I can do that for this person. And, oh, well, the SEN need this, and I could do a little bit. There's always in teaching something else, but then there's only 24 hours in a day, and you need to sleep, eat, and relax. So where do you cut off? And because this has forced me to do it, rather than me, like, I can't have the guilt about it, because I have to prioritize my child, and I think anyone would agree with that. So I was definitely forced into it rather than choosing to before. But I'm glad it's made me do that, because I think it's made me be a better teacher, really, in the long run.
That's interesting. That kind of leads. I've got a two-pronged question for you. And me and Dylan were having a good old chat about this the other day, and we were like, we've got to ask Sophie.
Okay.
So the two parts of this question are: do you think being a teacher is going to impact how you parent?
Okay.
And then it's kind of the vice versa to think about at the same time. Do you think being a parent now is going to impact how you teach? And then the kind of summary question is, which one do you think will have, which way around is going to have the bigger impact?
Okay. I'm going to go backwards, because actually I was talking to my friend the other day about the second bit. So I think being a parent has massively impacted me being a teacher in a good way. But I feel like it's a bit of a taboo thing to talk about, because it's come up on social media before. And before having a baby, anytime someone would talk about it, I think, well, that's really patronising. I know that I'm a good teacher and I've not got a child. But it's like when you have a child, a different part of your brain opens up you can't possibly access to till you're a parent. And oh my gosh, I just see everything differently. And I see my class as 30 children that are loved, hopefully, as much as I love my child, and that mean as much to other people as they. So I almost see like 30 Rorys in front of me, which, if anything, makes the pressure like 1,000 times worse. But I think my behaviour management and the way that I view discipline is completely transformed. I think I was not a no excuses person, nothing like that, but I was much more sort of hard line, and now I see a lot more of the why are children behaving like that. And I don't know, it's made the way I view teaching much more complicated. But I think I'm much more sort of compassionate and empathetic. And especially parents' evenings, I think the way that I speak to parents is different, and what I talk to them about is different. The second part to your question of, has being a teacher impacted me being a parent? I don't know, possibly I think lots of parents that know about, obviously, the goodness of books and things like that will always read to their children. But I just feel like I'm constantly shoving books in his face and counting everything everywhere. I said to my mum, actually, am I doing too much? Because I'm constantly counting and naming shapes and naming colours. And I don't know if that's maybe to his detriment a little bit, because I'm just never not teaching him something. So I don't know if that's maybe a bad thing or a good thing.
I feel like I'll be exactly the same, by the way.
Yeah. It's just your instinct, isn't it? Because you're teaching all the time. But yeah, so I think the one that's had the most impact is me being a parent on being a teacher. I do think it's
really
made me a better teacher, and I don't feel bad about saying it, because it's true. So just personally for me.
Do you think that came on quite quickly? As in the way, like, was it after months of having Roy, you were like, this has totally changed my mindset now on how I teach? Or do you think it's come with time, or after, like, he's hit a certain age, has it kind of unlocked that bit of your brain?
Yeah, I think it was a certain instant? Age. No, I think it was a certain age when he started having when he started behaving in a certain way. So he's just turned 18 months, and for the last few months we've entered tantrum territory. So I've been following a lot of different parenting and discipline things on Instagram and that sort of thing, and telling you how to deal with tantrums and why their behaviour is a certain way. I think now we've entered this phase, and I'm sort of looking ahead. It's made me see children's behaviour at all stages from a much different perspective. So I think when he was a potato, like you were saying, there wasn't really much to base my parenting on. But now
that is the scientific term, by the way. Stage one potato.
Yeah. Now I don't know what this stage would be, but he's a walking, moving, tantruming potato. So that's definitely made
yeah. And then you can relate it to the kind of like potatoes that we might teach, the older potatoes that we might teach at school. Every child is now obviously a potato, right?
Yeah.
That's the only analogy that makes sense.
Yeah, when you look at each individual child, you've got the jacket potatoes, you've got the roasties, you've got the chips, and
Yeah.
they're all got different ways of behaving. And obviously,
Yeah.
your Rory, to kind of move into a more serious point, your Rory is going to develop a personality. And when we look at a class now, I don't know about you, but I think year to year, I can kind of group kids in how they behave and how they act, and I can kind of they're the quiet girls who'll just coast through unless you go through and do that with them. Here are the boisterous boys who are popular, but they really do behave themselves, and they're really well liked, and they try hard. And here's the group who simply they don't put effort in. They're more worried about playing Fortnite when they get home. Do you think as Rory kind of develops his kind of own personality? Are you going to like develop a bit of a soft spot for children who are similar to him? Do you think, or is it more a generic thing of but my Rory does this, but you're going to do that instead, and I understand that as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely made me see each child differently, and rather because you do end up stereotyping them in groups. If people say they don't lie, because of course you do, and children get lumped into, like you say, the sporty ones and the clever ones, and we say we don't label them, but we do. Yeah. But definitely seeing Rory develop his personality, and I can almost predict the kind of child that he's going to be, and I can tell there are some things he's going to do that are going to really annoy his teacher. But I know why he's doing those things, and it's made me think, things that kids have done that I think, that's really annoying. Now, if I was the mum of that child, I can see, why they're behaving like that, but look at all the good sides to their personality, or it's really tricky. And actually, on a side note, sorry, this is going off tangent a little bit. I can see so much of me in him, which is quite interesting now he's got to this age. I've actually just been referred for possible ADHD. So I'm going through that sort of process, and I know that it can be genetic. So I'm looking at Rory and I'm wondering some of the things that he does, because he is on the go all the time. I said to my mum the other day, I'm saying it now, if he is ADHD, I will not be surprised. Which again makes me see all the children that have some sort of neurodivergence differently as well. So it's a whole learning curve.
It almost just makes you consider it a bit more, maybe like you said, when your brain kind of opens, generally through experience as well, you sort of look at things differently. You have a new perspective and be like, actually, maybe that particular behaviour was because of this thing, which you maybe learned now with having such a close relationship with your own child. Yeah.
Sophie, I've got a quick question. This is it's related to what we've been talking about. When Rory gets of a certain age where he's going to school, what are your thoughts on him, A, going to the school you work at, and B, being in your class? Do you have any strong feelings about that? Because a lot of teacher friends I've spoken to seem to always have a really strong opinion on that, whether it's one way or the other. I don't see many who don't mind. Do you have an opinion yet on that?
Haven't really thought about it, weirdly, but I was in my mum's class, and my mum was a teacher. She's retired now. And there were pros and cons. So the pros were obviously the fact that my mum was there if I ever needed her, and she tried to enforce me calling her a teacher name, but it just felt really unusual, so I just called her mum. But the cons were she was actually harsher on me than she was anyone else, because she obviously didn't want any favouritism to be accused. So I do think, now thinking about it like that, it would be easier if he wasn't in my school, because someone put on Facebook the other day, my child's having issues with this child and their parent is my colleague because they're in the same school. So how on earth do I raise it with them? I just think if Rory's in a separate school, it's going to be so much easier to address any issues like that, because I won't feel that there's potential conflict between colleagues as well. So now you've said that, I think separate school would just make so many things easier.
I think I'm going to find it, I don't know about you, but I can imagine I'm going to find it so hard going to like parents' evenings and things. And speaking to other teachers, being in that world, like, because if there's anything that you remotely don't think is that good about like a system in the school or something, you're going to have to be like, this is not really my place, because if I wasn't a teacher, I maybe wouldn't know about this particular math scheme they're using. And I'm like, where's the line? Is it really annoying to talk to teacher parents? I feel like I've probably talked to some, but I don't know. Like,
see, I've had quite a lot of teacher parents, and they've so far always been some of the easiest ones to talk to because they get it. But I had said the other day, I think when Rory goes to school, I'm going to be hopefully the parent that if he goes on a trip, I'll make sure, I'll get the teacher a bottle of wine, or I'll send in whatever I know the teachers will like for Easter, like biscuits for the staff room or something.
A mug saying best teacher ever, obviously.
Yeah, obviously to add to the ones at the back of the cupboard.
One that you got.
Exactly, pass it on. So equally, I feel like we'd be in a good position to show appreciation to teachers and know what they go through. But on the flip side, like you say, I thought if he's particularly good at a subject and he's not being challenged. Like, oh, the worst thing was when a parent emails to say, well, they're bored in that lesson, you're not challenging them. But what if I have to say that? And I don't know. There's going to be pros and cons, aren't there? It's going to be difficult.
Big time. Because you might actually, for the first time, think something that a parent has said to you in the past where you're like, they don't know the context. They don't know the context. And you might, in your full wisdom, you might be like, I know the parents say this, but I really do think in this time it's true. And I just happen to be on the other side. I can imagine it's, minefield. Absolute minefield.
What we're going to have to do, Sophie, is simply get you on every 12 months, and we're just going to talk about every single stage of the journey through
I'll
school.
warn you what's coming. And then
That's the undercover reason here. It's like, okay, we're taking notes like massively, like what's going on. I'm going to form my opinion through you.
Have you got anyone that's a year ahead of me? Because then they can tell me how it goes. Pass on.
In my friends group, we've got pretty much every age from a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old down to what is now a 4-month-old, I think. So pretty spread out, I know, and we are winging it. I don't know how you felt when Rory was first born. It's like we spoke about it a million times before. The one thing Hayden and I have agreed that we definitely don't do now is go onto Instagram and let the algorithm tell us how to parent, because oh my gosh, like I could go through 3 reels in a row. And my Rory's going through the phase now. He's just about to start weaning, so that's a big stage for him to go through and start having food. And you go on Instagram, you're like, give him a frozen carrot, let him chew in it. And then the next reel will be, don't you dare give them a frozen carrot. That is awful. I'm like, what? Which one is it then?
They will develop psychological. There's impacts it'll have, and when they're 10, this will happen. They'll explode.
Mental.
Okay.
So I think it must be so much easier to parent when our parents were doing it, because there was no internet to like scare you into doing things or not doing things. You just followed your instinct, which is what parenting is.
Have you seen that trend recently that's going around on like Instagram reels and things? That's like,
I know what you're going to say already.
Of like a child in like their car seat or something. It's like me going through every step, thinking of all the things I need to do to make sure my child is extremely safe, and then it goes to a picture of me in 1996, and they're just in a car seat, like wrapped in 4 blankets with a seatbelt round their face, and it's just like
eating rice at 6 weeks old.
I know, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. Right.
Oh man,
Sophie, before we go in, Hayden, before we go into chat very quickly, did you want to say anything about parenting? Because I wanted to move on to something different just before we talk about SATs.
Hayden, you talking to me or Sophie?
When I said Hayden, I meant Hayden. So Hayden,
I see. Yeah, I've got one more question. One more question. So I just want to know, really, just selfishly, nursery. Have you? I want to know your opinion on it, because me and Dylan have been going back and forth and talking with our partners about like, do we do nursery? Okay, if we do, when do we do it? Or maybe we don't do nursery. Actually, no, I don't think nursery is good up to this age. Do you have any opinions on nursery?
The context, very quickly. Sorry, the context is we have family amazingly who can help us. So it would be a choice whether they go in for 1 day or 2 day, and like, so we're lucky to be in that position
for a year or 2.
Nice. Okay. I mean, what I've heard and what I do think is true is if nursery's only 1 day a week, if you can avoid it, it's probably best not to, because 1 day a week isn't quite routine enough for them to get into the swing of it. So we do 2 days a week, which is just on the edge. And I'll be honest, it did take him a few months to settle. He cried on drop off for a while, which obviously is heartbreaking, but you know that you can't do anything about it. You just got to go. I think what they say about, it helps them develop social skills and all that is rubbish, because they're so young. They get everything they need from their caregivers until they go, their age to go to school. So it would have to be whether you felt it was beneficial in other ways. I do think he does enjoy it now, and he has access to activities that I could never set up at home, which is a bonus.
Yeah.
So all the amazing things they do with tough trays and like arty things that I can't be bothered to clean up if I get out, that kind of thing. That side of it is really good. But I think if you've got the option of family looking after them, then why not? My boy loves spending time with my parents. And if they could do every day, I would do that instead, if I'm honest, because they love it and he loves it.
It's really interesting you mentioned the social thing, because that's probably one of my biggest worries. So it's quite cool to hear someone be like, actually, it's not that beneficial, because my thing is, I don't want her to not be good at socializing before she goes to school, so we need to send her to nursery for that.
No, I don't think. Again, obviously you read things on Instagram and whether they're true or not, but I think they say up to like 2 or 3, they only do like parallel play, so they don't really interact with each other. They just play next to each other, and it's when they start to get to reception kind of age that they start to learn those skills. And I mean, assuming obviously they'll go to soft play or whatever, and they'll meet other children. It's not like they're never going to see children. And obviously your two will see each other, won't they? I guess.
Yeah,
So
that's true. Well,
I don't
if
know.
we have to.
Yeah.
have to force them together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that, like, if kids that don't go to nursery are going to be hugely lacking in social skills. I've read that's just like, not necessarily a myth, but really not that important. So
I've really switched up my opinion on that, and one of the biggest reasons was I kind of thought they needed to go to nursery to socialise for no reason whatsoever, other than it just made sense in my head. I never saw any research. Like, I just kind of thought that inherently. But ever since I've looked it up a little bit or seen reels and stuff, I kind of then just went into myself again and I thought, okay, if I were to look at my year 4 class now, or Hayden's year 6 class right now, would I be able to tell which children went to nursery for 2 days or for 5 days a week because of their social skills? And the answer is no, because none of them have any social skills, really. Being truthfully honest, if we do group work, there's not one group I could make in my class of 6 children where there wouldn't be some kind of falling out. And it's I don't think 4 days at nursery would have solved this problem, really.
Do you know what there's loads of benefits of nursery. One, it depends if you see this as a benefit. Rory has been ill pretty consistently. Since he's been to nursery, I think there might be, you're lucky if you get a week of no illness, but then you hear that those that don't send them to nursery, they hit that when they go to school instead. So that's the only thing to consider. So whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's only what I've heard from people who haven't done nursery. But my hope is that once this kind of flu and cold season's out the way, he's got most of the illnesses out the way. So that might be something to consider. But,
is chickenpox still a thing?
Yeah, apparently you can get a vaccine for it now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't hear much about chickenpox parties anymore. I definitely went to one as a kid.
No, that's off you go. Chickenpox parties, they're definitly not a thing. Just so you know.
It wasn't. I was a little kid.
Sorry, Hayden was growing up in the Victorian times, apparently. Anyone listening to this, please don't throw chickenpox parties. We want to have children to not.
I went to one every week. I had loads of chickenpox as a kid. Mum was like, "Go on, you haven't had it in a while. Go on, you little tyke."
I tell you what. I'll tell you something. That does explain a lot. So anyway,
including the scar.
Sophie.
I've got a scar as well.
You got a chickenpox scar.
There you go. On my head.
We must have been at the same party. Dylan, where were you?
I was at home not getting chickenpox. Anyway, before we move on to the SAT, I'm so excited for our SAT chat, and I know you do a lot of work on the SAT chat. That is, we're gonna have a little jingle, new everything. I'm gonna do a little song.
Nice.
But you can't wait. But I kind of ad lib wanted to just do a little chat in between now, and I'm sorry if no one wants to talk about this, but I do, and I'm sure people at home want to hear about it as well, because you spoke very briefly about job share. And you mentioned how you had to really quickly change your approach to the job share, and it's kind of linked into cutting yourself off and saying, no, I'm 3 days a week, I need to do this, or working with your partner. Can you just touch upon how you found, not only we've talked about the transition from being off of maternity leave for a year and then getting back into teaching, but how did you manage to get over the fact that you're not in all week, and your class, who you're so used to having that journey with them throughout the whole year, it is disjointed now? And I think what I'd put to you is, a lot of people say to me, to Hayden, and I'm sure to you, that it is objectively worse to have a job share if you're a child going to school for the reasons that we just outlined. I struggle with that because I sometimes agree. How have you found it?
Yeah, I struggle with it too, because I sometimes agree. And someone that I used to work for never liked job shares, and now I can kind of see why. But there are pros to it as well. I think my job share, luckily, has very different strengths to me. And so she's very sporty and she does all the PE, and I do more of the academic stuff that she would rather, not that she can't do it, she'd just rather do the PE. So, you get strengths of both teachers. I found the handover really difficult in terms of, especially if there's pastoral issues going on, and you might deal with it in slightly different ways. But I think, and splitting subjects, I don't know how you guys do it, but that we did share the maths and then found that was far too difficult. So we're now doing completely separate maths with separate books. We did share the writing, but found that too difficult. So I just do writing and she just does grammar. Okay. We've changed how we've done it every single half term, which again, I think the mix up can be good for the kids, because, you do one approach and it might not work for some of them. You do another approach and it works for others. But it's definitely kept me on my toes, trying to constantly think what's the best way of doing this with the time that we have and with the adults that we've got? Because I know you think, well, they've got 3 days of me, 2 days of my job share. But actually, I've got PPA and she's got PPA. So they have other adults then as well.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of if you follow the life of a child throughout a week in my class, they see quite a lot of different adults and have quite a lot of different experiences with behaviour management and all sorts. So, it's really tricky. It'd be interesting to see how you guys balance it. Clearly, quite differently maybe to what I was doing, because
what shocked me was the different books thing that you said. That shocked me. I think that was the biggest one. And I suppose as a quick overview, I mean, I can't talk for Hayden, but I think we're quite similar. So Hayden, jump in and tell me if anything's different. In terms of our planning, so we will set up a medium-term plan before every term. We will map out all of the objectives in a row, in a sequence we think is best for the children. And then, as a matter of fact, looking back at the MTP, we'd say, okay, I will plan this string of writing lessons because, perhaps the inverted commas lesson leads on to the dialogue lesson, leads on to their planning lesson. So I'll plan those three. And then there's a standalone reading comprehension. So you're going to plan that, and it's on retrieval. And we will kind of just come to roughly the right division. And it's never far off the division it should be. Based on A, the amount of work we need to do, because I think that's important to stick to, and B, the best for the kids. And I think that's where, across the board, whether it's maths, whether it's English, I think the hardest thing sometimes is matching up what's best for the children with what needs to match with my contract because it's a job. And I think that's where, I don't know, Hayden, what you think, but I think it works really well because I couldn't pick a better person to share a job with. I worked with my job share beforehand just as 2 full-time teachers, and she's fantastic. And I can be really blunt with her in the best way and say, this, by the way, that. And I don't need to spend half an hour thinking about how I say something. You know, if I've done something wrong, she'd tell me. And if she does something wrong, I'd say, oh, by the way, missed out on this. So that's a really nice
before you go to Hayden, can I just ask, out of interest, are you more experienced in your job share or vice versa? And do you think, I'm interviewing you now. Do you think that's affected the balance of how, and for you, Hayden, do you think the amount of experience you each have has affected how you balance things?
Hayden should talk about this because the only difference with my job share and me is 1 year in terms of experience. Okay. She's 1 year more experienced than me, but she was my head of year beforehand. But I feel like we're actually friends. So I don't actually feel whatsoever like there's that awkward professional kind of chasm between us, whereas Hayden's I know is very different, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, not that we're not friends. We're also friends. The way you worded that, so sorry, we're really good friends. But my job share is a lot more experienced than me. Like we're talking like 5 to 10 years more, and has been head of year 6 in the past as well. Was never my head of year, but I don't find that it makes it awkward in any way. If anything, I do think the fact that we're both quite experienced makes the job share a lot easier. We both really understand the job, and it's super easy to just pass over notes to each other because we just know we'll get the full context because of the experience we've had. I think I'd find it harder if I was really experienced and my job share was maybe 1 or 2 years into the career. I think that would probably be a harder experience.
So that's my experience.
Okay, is it? Right, okay.
So my job share, she's older than me. This is like her 3rd career, and she's got such good experience in other careers. But she's only maybe 3 years in. I was her mentor actually as a PGC student, and I have struggled with telling her what to do versus because she wants to, not because I'm being really controlling, because she doesn't feel very confident organising things that she hasn't done before, versus allowing her the autonomy as well to make decisions because it's a job share. Especially coming up to this term with SATs, I emailed my head the SATs timetable the other day, and we've got a lot of different access arrangements this year, and it's ever so logistically complicated. And then I did it and thought, I wonder if I should have done that with my job share because she's never done it before. Maybe she would have liked to do it with me. And I'm constantly kicking myself thinking, Sophie, this isn't just your class. You need to do this with someone. But then actually, I don't want to burden her with things that she doesn't have to do. Like, that's a job that I can take off her that's an hour long. So, and I know I could just talk to her about it. She's lovely, but that I'm finding hard if I don't want to overstep. But equally, I want to just do it because I know how to do it.
I don't think it's a problem, what you've done. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it's actually actively a good thing that you each have individual roles that you can focus on. I think maybe just the only step that could go in there is just having a chat first to be like, I'm going to do this thing, by the way. What would you like to take the lead on, and making sure that it feels fair. That way you don't have to be like, oh, do you want to share this awkwardly, like for one person job that I want to do? Because I'd find that me and Julie and I are exactly the same. we have our strengths and weaknesses, and we just kind of say to each other, you're better at planning maths, you're better at planning English. Do you want to take the English this term? I'll take the maths, and then we'll do it that way. And we just sort of play to our strengths. I think you know, to summarize what you said at the start of this conversation, I think there's a really clear pro and a really clear con to job share. And the clear pro is two minds are better than one. I think, you know, you've got two people with experience come into a classroom offering their experience to that class.
Did you see the debate? Sorry to jump in. Did you see the debate on Facebook about the marking of extended writing? I'm pretty sure one of you got involved in the conversation. Someone was doing free or big writes on a Friday. She was the 2-day a week teacher.
I did get involved.
She was saying, like, should I take on all the marking for this? It's not fair. And I feel like most people were saying, you know, actually, do you know what? I can't remember. Was there a fair split between what people saying? Or was it all pretty one-sided?
I think it was pretty one-sided in terms of people saying, come on, like, that's a bit unfair. You know, extended writing is the biggest writing. We all know it's the biggest piece of marking, there is. You're sharing the job, you know.
Yeah.
I think you
especially if you're sharing the teaching of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the counter argument was, well, we didn't share the marking that I did previously in the week. I did a full lesson's worth of marking previously in the week. So on that on that independent writing lesson or lessons, if that is their only marking from that, then they should be doing it. And if you really want to be petty, I think you could say, okay, they do a bit more to account for what would be a normal marking load of maybe like 45 minutes for a set of books. But when it takes 5 hours to do independent marking, I don't think you should just be like, oh, well, it fell on your day.
Well, that's the problem.
That's a bit mean.
That's the problem, by the way. Like, isn't it? Like, if your marking scheme means you take 5 hours to mark your independent writing, that's the first thing in that situation I'd be talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You got to have a bit of like synergy with your job share, haven't you? Like, you know, again, for us, we just had mock sats week.
Well, what do you do, Sophie? Because,
yeah.
Sorry, my internet's really lagging, by the way.
No, don't worry, Dylan. You just jump in. Oh, he's like, fair enough.
I'm so far behind on my lagging.
Blame it on that, Dylan. Blame it on the lagging.
Yeah.
What do you do, Hayden, for mock sats week? Because I'm interested. What do you do first? Tell me.
What, in terms of like the logistics, or
like, do you do a full as if it's Sats week where you're doing it, the adults are using that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do that one time, and that's more for us, to be honest with you. We do that one time before the other ones earlier on the year. We just do them kind of casually, like just to get data.
Okay.
But this is the one we do before the actual Sats. We do it properly as if it's the real thing, all the right rooms and adults, and you know, extra time and all that sort of stuff. And we use it to basically as a test run for us to make sure the kids are in the right place and got all the adults. But we did that on a Monday to Wednesday. So we did actually cram it into 3 days instead of 4. That's the only thing we changed, just so we had a bit more teaching time, not wasted in the week. And obviously that comes with tons of marking, doesn't it? You know, there's gap analysis and stuff like that. And I ended up doing all of that, but that was fine because then, you know, me and my job share just have that understanding of, she would just recognise I did a bit more work, and then went out of her way to do a bunch of parents evening comments for us this week, like a huge job that we'd normally share. She was like, no, don't worry, because you did those tests last week.
Yeah, that's
and I think
nice.
you just, to have a good job share, I think you do just kind of need that connection where it's like, we're not here to mug each other off. We're not here to get one up on each other, like, or keep notes on, or you've done extra 45 minutes of marking than me this week, so that's not fair. I think you've kind of got to be chilled about it to make it work.
It sounds like we're all quite lucky, though, in that we get on with our job shares quite well, whereas I've had friends that have really clashed with their job shares and they've had to communicate through the head with what they're going to be sharing rather than just with each other, which must be really difficult.
You can see why people don't want to do job shares, because it does just open up the probability of this kind of thing happening. Which I guess leads me on to the final bit of my earlier point, which is the con of job share is exactly that. It's that you've got two people now doing it and you might have very different teaching styles. That could potentially not be fair on the kids, I think. And I think this is the bit where Dylan struggles with saying, you know, objectively, is it just worse to have a job share?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard because if the teachers are really different, then the kids could be getting completely different teaching styles, getting really confused about their routine. Or this first teacher in the week lets me do this, and the second teacher doesn't. I keep forgetting who's okay with this and who's not. So you just got to be careful. But I can see the struggle.
On the mock sats quickly, we do just one test under the test conditions, but then we do a full set, but just in the classroom. And actually, you talking about it's now made me think about it. I haven't even asked my job share. I've just taken that on that I will mark them and analyse them, because that's that control part of me that I want to know where the gaps are because I want to plan in the revision. So I think I should probably ask her if she wants to mark any. But then I think, well, who wants to mark SATs papers? Like, surely she'll be glad. But I'm just getting used to handing over control, and it's not all about what you want, Sophie.
I think that's what it is, isn't it? It sounds like you're still treating it like you're the full-time class teacher.
Yeah.
And
Which
you've got
fair
maybe
you've
got someone in. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard transition. Like we've been doing it for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Definitely took some time to get used to the concept of how this works after 8 years of teaching full time in a class. And it's still not perfect, but we learn, we change all the time.
I'll tell you what though, the best thing I would say about a job share is teacher wellbeing, and I think that has massively translated to my teaching. I think my actual physical teaching in front of the children is genuinely better than ever. And I'm saying that in a place of, yes, I'm more experienced, obviously, but I'm not really burning out week to week. And I used to burn out week to week. I'd get to Thursday, Friday, and I would genuinely be absolutely knackered. And I know what I'm teaching wouldn't be at its best because I'm like waiting for the weekend basically to recharge. And although now we have children, and although Hayden and I we have our business where we do work on Thursday and Friday, it is not comparable to teaching. And I think that's where you can get really lost in the job as a teacher and forget how unbelievably exhausting the job is. And going part-time, if you can afford to do so, or if it's better for your family life, I would recommend it to anyone for that. Burnout is much less likely to happen with 3 days a week.
I feel exactly the same actually, because I'd get to Thursday and just feel like my week should be over, because 3 days is enough to exhaust you, isn't it? I think that's enough time to not lose the enthusiasm, because I've done 3 days on fractions. My goodness, if I had to do another 2 days on fractions, I'm going to want to end it all. So, by the time you've had 4 days to process it, you get back to your next day on fractions on the Monday and you think, right, ready to go, rather than having to drag your feet through 2 more maths lessons. So, I think that is a massive pro that isn't really talked about enough. Yeah,
definitely. Plenty of pros, and there's a few cons. But obviously, we mentioned SATs. I think we should use this as a segue to play the jingle and come back and talk a bit more about SATs, because you, Sophie, are obviously, of course, the SATs queen. And you mentioned that you do analysis, and you've written some awesome analyses in the past.
I think the term is just analysis. It's like sheep; you don't do anything to it.
Did you know that fish and fishes are 2 different plurals that mean different things?
Go on, tell the people at home.
Someone's going to tell me this is wrong, but one of them, and I'm going to go for fish. Fish is plural for the same. I was about to say brand of fish. Breed? Species?
Go brand.
Species of fish. There's like 17 fish if they're all goldfish. But fishes if they're all different brands of fish.
You are absolutely right. That is exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thanks. Oh, I didn't realise I had an expert in the room. There you go.
An expert on fishes.
A really obscure quiz question. Yes, I do randomly know that for some reason.
Nice. Well, thanks for confirming.
Right. Let's play the jingle and come back.
Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Like we said at the start of the episode, you're not going to hear the rest of it right now. We're going to save it for next time, and you're going to get 2 bumper episodes with the lovely Sophie. So, hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think, and do follow us, and make sure you're keeping your eyes peeled for part 2. See you next time.